I'm going to show you how to use the Premiere Pro waveform scope to analyze tonality. To follow along, go to Working Files, open up the Premiere Pro Projects folder, and then double-click on Analyze Tonality. We're going to work with 7 different clips here as we analyze tonality. The first order of business is to expand the view here of the reference monitor. I have the reference monitor open to the waveform scope, and you want to do that too. I'm going to pull this thing down like that, make it bigger. What you're looking at here is brightness or luma or luminance. Now, technically, those terms are different, but they're so close together that we can use them interchangeably. And all that green stuff inside the waveform monitor is called the trace or traces. And the trace is showing you the amount of the various levels of luminance. You have this glob down here that represents the dark area on the left side of the clip. You're looking left to right here inside the waveform scope. So you've got this dark area here, that's this cabinet here, and these chair legs like that, and this rug right there. It doesn't show them as separate, distinct things. It just kind of adds up everything into one glob of dark area. This little line right there, kind of angling up to the right, that's this frame there, showing it from little kind of medium gray to slightly brighter gray on the right-hand side. That's why you get the little line like that. This line here that's interrupted in the middle is the tablecloth. Now, the tablecloth has this 90-degree angle to it, but it's just the amount of luminance that we're talking about here. So right around here, it's very bright, like that. But it's a little less bright over here, and it's cut off by this plate rim there, so that's why you have the break there. This little bright spot there is that little highlight by the window, and a couple other bright spots too, not quite as bright right there and there. Now notice that the traces here go from basically 0 to 110. Actually, they're going a little bit beyond that, because you can see this little line on the right-hand side shows they go down to -7 IRE, and also up to 110 over here. This shows the actual traces over here. You can't see the traces that are below 0 here because they're so small, just a few pixels. But this does give you an accurate representation of just how dark things are. The fact that they're so small that you can't see them, that means you really don't need to worry about them when you're adjusting tonality. Just the stuff that you can see here. So you get a sense of how this works left to right like that. It's also dynamic. If I move this around like that, you'll see that it changes as we go left to right. It responds immediately to changes in the playhead. Let's go to this next clip here. View of the coastline. This is the Sonoma County coast here in California, just west of Bodega Bay. It was a very windy day when I shot this. I had a pretty heavy tripod and a pretty heavy camera, and the wind would have blown them both over if I had held it down. You can hear the wind going there. Nevertheless, this is a relatively well-exposed clip here. You can see that we go down to black here and up to 100 IRE here. So from 0 to 100, so it's properly exposed. But you can see that it actually goes above 100 there by that little line, and below 0 down here by that line. Nevertheless, it's nicely exposed there. But let's look at it left to right here. See that line tapering off there? That's the sky here getting gradually gray as it goes to the right. This little stuff right there, that's the ocean, that mid-gray right there. This kind of mixed up stuff like that, that's the froth here of the waves. And then this area right there is the sky where it gets really bright. Notice the little humps there, like that? These are the bright areas in the sky right like that. You've got some pretty distinct black down here. That's this stuff here, and this over here, and that over there. Even though they're vertically separated here, they're lumped together over here. Notice how it's not so black on the right-hand side here. That's because all this stuff here is kind of a dark gray as opposed to black, except for little areas like that, which show up as black over here. So there again, you look at tonality from left to right to get a sense of how it's working. Let's go on down to this next shot here. This is a little different. It's a night shot. Usually your goal when you're adjusting tonality is to have a full range of tonality from black to white. But here you don't want to have black to white. You don't want this stuff to be lifted up and turned into gray. You want that black area to stay there, this really dark area. Otherwise you'd lose the drama of this particular shot. So this is one of those instances where, yeah, you don't have much midtones here, but you don't really want any midtones. But notice we've got a whole bunch of stuff here at 110. Now anything above 100 is just pure white. There's no detail in it at all. So if we wanted to get some detail inside those lights, we need to pull this thing down. But it's okay, there are little blops of bright light there. There really is not going to be a problem. They're those little bright spots. But we can, when we adjust tonality, pull those brights down just a little bit to make them a little less obvious. When you work with fog, you also don't necessarily want to have a full range of luminance. Now in this case, we have some true black. Now if we just shot the fog here, we wouldn't want to have any blacks in there. But we've got some blacks down here, that's okay. And you don't want any bright whites here, or the fog would be washed out. So you see the little lump there? That's this little bright spot over there. And there are some traces that go above 100, but they're so small, again, you can't even see them show up here. And they're probably showing up here inside the leaves and other places like that. All right, now I want to show you some common mistakes when folks shoot video. This is overexposed. It may not look immediately overexposed, but if you take a look at the scope, you begin to see that it is overexposed. There are no blacks, which is not a good thing. You want to bring your shadows down to 0 IRE, and there aren't any here. This was overexposed on purpose. I just opened up my iris quite a ways here to get this overexposure here when I was shooting along the Sonoma County coast. You see how things go above 100 IRE here, which means everything there, all those traces, will be pure white with no detail. We can save this though. One of the cool things about HD video in most cases is that if you have stuff from 100 to 110 IRE, you can pull that down and you can rescue the detail. So right now this is all pure white. Anything that's above 100 is just pure white with no detail. But when I apply a color correction effect and pull this down, detail will start showing up here along this line like that. So it's good to know that with HD you can get a little buffer area here if you do overexpose a bit. So when we talk about fixing something overexposed like this, the first order of business is to bring the blacks down to the 0 IRE line, then bring the highlights down to the 100 IRE line. I'll talk about that later in the course. Over here we've got an underexposed clip. I put a neutral density filter on this one and really closed the iris down, way, way down. All the stuff down there is absolutely black. Anything below 0 IRE is just pure black, no detail. But just as with the highlights above 100, anything below 0 down to about -7 or so, you can lift that up and you'll start getting some detail here in these dark areas. They'll be dark, dark gray, but there'll be some detail in them. So we can pull these guys up a little bit to get them up to 0 IRE later. And then we can lift up the highlights. But you'll notice that when you fix something underexposed like this, and you lift up the highlights toward 100, you'll see that there's not much chroma in it. Even though you got a nice little sunset there, you'll lose some of the chroma as you expand this. But again, we'll show you how to fix underexposed stuff later on. And finally, here's a clip that you probably will never get right out of a camera. I created this by taking a well-exposed clip and then making it too bright and too dark using the luma curve effect. Basically, see there are traces here below 0 IRE and traces above 100 IRE. Not often will you get stuff like this when you shoot video. You usually get something, let's say, shifted toward the top or shifted toward the bottom. Usually not shifted in both directions. But I do want to show you this and show you later how you can fix something like this when you've got stuff below 0 IRE and stuff above 100 IRE. So that's how you use the waveform scope to analyze tonality. It really comes in handy when you want to start adjusting tonality, when you want to have just a little bit of stuff down here at the blacks, just a little bit in the shadows here, and you want to have just a little bit in the highlights, then a nice tonality range in between.